it's really great to be able to spend time with you folks, particularly on drainage, because it's one of the things that is expanding, and it's becoming a really important piece of the portfolio of issues that we have to deal with into the future as we look towards 2050 and the fact that we're going to have almost 10 billion people on the face of the earth, and we have to feed those folks. So we've got this huge balancing act between trying to reduce the footprint of agriculture in both water and nutrients, and at the same time ramp up productivity so that we can actually meet the demands for the rest of the world. So, and at NIFA, we're going to have some things change. Of course, we don't do the same thing from one year to the next. And so, where's water? Well, we're going to have a mechanism supposedly to fund a broader portfolio in surface and groundwater sustainability. So that's a euphemism for the fact that water's going to kind of take a little bit of a dive as an independent, standalone program or challenge area, and we're going to have some new initiatives that are going to begin in fiscal year 2018. Now, of course, we've got a lot of problems and issues, and as Sonny Ramaswamy, my director, would say, these wicked problems that roll out before us, particularly with water, because we've got to produce more food with less water, and we have to adapt to climate change. All these things, are looming, particularly impending drought. The intensity, of course, and the frequency seems to be elevating, and anywhere in the United States during 1 year we have a drought somewhere. And so, and we also have to think about these people-centered technologies where we are linking biophysical and socioeconomic research, education, and outreach. In other words, trying to get better at translating our research so that we go right to some adoption, right, and behavior change. And so we've been trying to work this whole adoption and behavior change since 2005, and we've made some major strides. And at NIFA, when you look at a lot of the requests and the funding lines, in there will be a piece on sociology. There will, we've managed to jam that in just about every funding line we have. We also have this looming generational issue of nutrients and other contaminants in air, water, and soil. It relates back to the soil health idea, and also, transforming drainage and drainage issues. Remember that NIFA is a federal assistance agency. We're a small agency with a big budget. We all sit in one building right now. There are 300 of us. We have $1.5 billion budget, so that's a lot of money, and most of that money we push out to you folks to do the great things that you do. We have those capacity program grants like Hatch and Smith-Lever that help support a lot of your salaries, and the idea of Hatch was really to help you do the riskier research and the long-term research and keep that going over years and years. And the Smith-Lever, of course, was to support a third of extensions budget. And of course, all those budgets come and go, and things change, but these capacity programs have stayed pretty stable for years. So I think they've been really effective. Competitive grants, of course, you're all looking towards trying to, compete for the grants, some of the larger ones that we have particularly, and we also have targeted programs where if we have some certain issue-oriented things that crop up, we have like care and exploratory, where we're trying to, actually throw money and address some issues that just crop up if we have like a major fire year, or if we have severe flooding or hurricanes or whatever. We have some money that can go in when you folks have, serendipitously, you have a chance to do some quick research that might move the bar pretty high. Then we have agreements with other agencies. We have MOUs with a lot of other federal agencies, and we're trying to actually truly collaborate. When I go to the SWAC meetings, that's the Surface Water Availability and Quality meetings, that's the meetings across government, all the agencies that do water. That's 25 agencies, basically, in Washington, D.C. We talk about the fact that we collaborate, but the fact of the matter is we mostly communicate. Collaboration means that you're actually sharing dough, money, real money. But we are doing that with some agencies, particularly the ones in USDA. We are doing that with EPA and USGS and some other folks too. So sometimes we will actually be able to fund additional, projects and make additional awards because we have those relationships. Okay, so our mission is to invest in and advance ag research, education, and extension to solve societal challenges. We're strategically going to catalyze exemplary and relevant research and extension programs and education programs and advance America's global partnerships in food and ag sciences. Of course, we're trying to improve our relationship internationally, and actually with Otto Gonzalez as the Center for International Programs lead at NIFA, we've actually had a lot more linkages, and I've actually spent more time overseas trying to hook up with some of the folks that would actually help us in the United States improve our technology toolkit, because they've actually been dealing with some of the issues that we're now beginning to deal with for 40 or so years. So that's very exciting. What does the future hold? Well, our Water for Agriculture, Science, Education, and Outreach portfolio, we've engaged knowledge and technology incentives and policies to promote appropriate decision-making at a wide range of scales. It's addressed critical water issues like drought, excess soil moisture, flooding availability, and the human dimensions of water technology adoption, but it's ended, okay? So it's over. So there you go, gone. So the water challenge area is gone. So how have we funded efforts to solve water issues in the past? Well, we had 12 years of the National Integrated Water Quality Program, and many of you were able to utilize those monies. We're actually going to have a synthesis that's coming from several folks led by Linda Prokopi and Michael Neal. And then we've had 3 years of this competitive water challenge, this Water for Agriculture, where we've looked at right crop, right water, right place, and adoption and behavior and what have you. And this year, 2017, we had the Water for Food Production Systems portfolio, which was a single-year challenge area, which was kind of a bridging challenge area between the more specific water-oriented Water for Agriculture and the next phase, which will be fiscal year 2018, Sustainable Ag Systems. So this Water for Food Production System was a very broad RFA within the AFRI flagship funding line. That's our big one that has traditionally been $350 million. That's the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative. And so this Water for Food Production Systems was $34 million this year. We've already talked to the awardees, and so we are going to award about 7. They were all caps, nothing else, and so and they were about a little over $5 million a piece for 5 years. And so that's kind of the bridging one. It was really to look at a systems approach, and that it was going to consider a broad spectrum of the kinds of ag producers and other competing industries, consumers, and communities where they live, and other relevant stakeholders. It was pretty broad, and it was, as we get to these broader and broader programs, practically they're a little more difficult, because oftentimes they lead to large groups when we do these caps. We have a lot of conflicts of interest. It's difficult to actually panel these things. And so a lot of you are on the teams, and you might be on multiple teams, and so trying to find folks to actually review these is pretty tough. All right, we also collaborate with Infuse, so hopefully you know that. We're NSF's little brother partner. They kick in about between 35 and 45 million. They've asked for about 75 million from time to time, and we kick in about 5. Although in the next years we're going to bump it up to 10. So we are going to be a little bit better, but it is fun to be a part of that group, and we do deal with track 1, which is the modeling piece, and then track 3, which is the research-oriented piece. And that track 3 is fairly similar to some of the Water for Agriculture things that we've done in the past. But, looking at the nexus between food, energy, and water is an important piece. It gets us into the discovery-oriented activities, and it's fun to work with my colleague Tom Torgeson and the rest of the group that that does Infuse, and that will continue into the near future. We're actually now going through discussions about what using our brain power to try to figure out what kind of direction it's going to go into the future, but it is going to continue into the future, as far as I can tell. We also have a small piece of water in the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, and have been actually hidden in there for a long time, and it's focused at recycled water. So, when you folks are thinking about recycled water in specialty crops, you might think about this SCRI, because it's not utilized very often. So we don't actually see a lot of awards going that direction, but it's always a piece of their RFA. And so that one is a big dollar piece, that $48 million too. So that's going to be looking at specialty crops like almonds and the nuts and vegetables and what have you. All right, so let's talk about 2018. We're going to have 3 RFAs. The first one, and they're all the ones that I'm talking about are going to be in underneath the AFRI funding line. And we did get a bump this year in 2018, so we normally would get about $350 million. Well, we're going to get $400 million, so we have $50 million additional funds to be able to increase the number of awards. We're not sure how that's going to be spread out. We know that Sonny Ramaswamy has asked us not to use what he called the peanut butter approach, which is spread it out across the whole agency, where it's just like this thick. So we're going to try to do it with a lot more emphasis on program balancing and what have you. So 2018, the RFAs are still unreleased. The first one I'm talking about is Sustainable Ag Systems, $66 million. I think that's going to be bumped up to more than $75 million. But it brings the launch of the Sustainable Ag Systems, focusing on it's actually supposed to bring all the challenge areas, all of them, all 6 of them, together collectively rather than in isolation. And will support initiatives such as the microbiome and food and ag, cyber-informatics and tools. That's this fact piece of it, as well as increased emphasis on classical and conventional plant and animal breeding. It's going to be very broad. Look to that. I can't tell you much about it except what's here, because we've been told repeatedly not to talk about anything that's not in the explanatory notes of the budget. So you can look and look at the details of what I'm talking about now by clicking in on Google, NIFA Explanatory Notes FY 2018. Go down to Sustainable Ag Systems and the other ones, and you can read it yourself. And hopefully, by the end of the month, the RFA will be out. So the other 2 RFAs are going to be the Foundational and Applied Sciences, also under AFRI, but they're bumping it up to $220 million. Now, so we listened to you folks about the fact that new investigators, and you wanted to have a bigger variety, and you wanted to be able to go back to funding a lot to these $500,000 level projects. That's where we put the big bucks this year. $220 million on foundational, and there's a relatively long list of sub-priorities, including the biology, natural resources, environment, ag systems. The typical list that we've had for foundational is still going to be there. So look to BENRI in particular for natural resources and water-related and soil-related things, soil health, for example. Ag systems for irrigation. So you can pick and choose through those. And then the last one is going to be called Education and Workforce Development, and of course the RFA is still unreleased, and it's $23 million, and it'll also be $500K, and I think there's some that are $750 and some that go up to $1 million. So those are the 3 RFAs: Sustainable Ag Systems, Foundational and Applied Sciences, and Educational and Workforce Development. And you need to see yourself in our RFAs. That's how it's going to have to work in the future. Part of SAS, Foundational, BENRI, Ag Systems, Nano and others, and Infuse. Take advantage of review panel membership, because that's how you learn how to write a proposal that will be funded. And you're an important stakeholder group. So please talk to me. When you're in Washington, D.C., stop in my office, come to the panel, and I would really appreciate seeing you, because we keep an open door policy, and I really enjoy meeting up with folks and listening to what you think about what we're doing from one day to the next. Anyway, thanks very much.